Before we dive into the sermon, I wanted to share something that I learned in preparation for this service this Sunday. So, O Holy Night, our special music for today, is my very favorite Christmas carol, but not one that I know a lot about. So I was Googling to find the author information so we could properly credit it in the bulletin. And that was when I learned that it actually has a very strong Unitarian connection. The lyrics are based on a poem written in French by a French poet named Placide Cappeau, and it was then set to music by a very popular French composer named Adolphe Adam. This is in the 1840s. But the English version that we know and love was translated from the French into English in 1855 by a Unitarian minister named John Sullivan Dwight. Now, Dwight had a very short and ill-fated career as a Unitarian minister. Before becoming a teacher at Brook Farms, which was a transcendentalist socialist commune. And then finally, he became a music journalist. And along the way, he translated O Holy Night. And one of the reasons that his version became popular in the American North is because the third verse connects the teachings of Jesus with a call to end slavery. Dwight was an abolitionist, and this was an abolitionist song. The lyrics in the third verse are, "Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease." So this being in 1855, right on the edge of the Civil War, this was actually a very political and a very radical statement to make, wrapped up inside of a Christmas carol. So there you go, O Holy Night, a Unitarian radical social justice song written by a dude living in a socialist commune. I knew there was a reason it is my favorite. And I want to thank you so much, Judith and Jill, for bringing it to us so beautifully today. I also want to thank worship associate Mike Hurdle for finding our two poems for today. It takes a village to create a worship service at UUI, and we're lucky to have so many people contributing their talents. Yeah. So there's another song that has a special meaning for me this time of year in a different way. Among Unitarian Universalist ministers, there is a game where one tries to get as long as possible through the holiday season without hearing the song "The Little Drummer Boy." When you hear it, which is called getting LDB'd, you are out, right? And so all season, people are posting on Facebook, "I'm out." Now, I don't have any special rancor for this song. Actually, when I was a kid, it was kind of my favorite, but I do now appreciate the humor and maybe the horror of the idea that the perfect gift for a mother with a newborn baby is a drum solo, right? Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. Silent night indeed. So first of all, don't wake the baby. That's always the rule. But second of all, little drummer boy, spare a little peace and quiet for the rest of us as well. Because we're entering a season that can leave our nerves a little jangly, and we need to find our own place of rest within it. I mean, of course, the holiday season, right? This complicated time of year we're all about to go through. And I want to start by saying I unabashedly love this time of year. For me, there's a special feeling that starts at the beginning of December. It is a complex melange of embodied memories, sights and sounds and smells that call me back to my earliest memories of snowfall and snow forts, cookies and cocoa and carols, twinkling lights. There were these delicate lead icicles that we carefully unpacked every year at my grandma's house. You can't buy them anymore because, lead. But we would hang them on the Christmas tree, one single strand at a time. There was the thrill of Christmas morning, family, and the mysterious mythic imagery of the Christmas story itself. And this promise that it made to me as a young boy that peace and love were possible things in the world. So I love this time of year. And again, right around the first week of December, my body starts to signal to me that the world is now just subtly a little more charged with the possibility for delight and meaning than it was the week before. And now as an adult, there's a second feeling that arrives in my body. And this feeling kicks in somewhere around the second week of December. And this feeling goes more like, oh my God, Christmas is in 10 days. How can this be happening? How can it be the 15th and I still have so much shopping to do? Oh my God, right? Because the holidays can be joyous, but they can also be a little stressful. We've barely cleaned up the candy wrappers from Halloween. We have barely polished off the last crumbs of pumpkin pie. And then you hear the opening chimes of Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, played overhead at the CVS, and we know the holiday season is upon us again. Cheerfully maddening, maddeningly cheerful. And sometimes the stress that we experience is the product of our own expectations or the expectations of family, or expectations that we have just sort of internalized from all the commercials and the Hallmark specials. Perhaps we are determined to create the perfect holiday experience for our loved ones. I have been there. For those of us who are susceptible to such impulses, and you may not be, the winter holiday season can be a time of trying to do everything just exactly right. The house will be spotless and decorated so as to make Martha Stewart weep with envy. We will bake approximately 900 dozen cookies. We will send out all of the cards with weeks to spare. We will get the perfect presents, sing songs by the fire. We will remember the little dark chocolate shavings grated onto our warm cups of cocoa. We're trying to create some magical holiday memories here, right? But then, as John Lennon sang, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So what a shame it would be to be so in our head with our plans and our projects that we let some of the real magic of the season slip by. So I invite you, if your type A personality tends to run type A double plus at this time of year, just aim lower. I invite you to consider doing less, right? Embrace imperfection, and then use that extra time for hugs and stories and laughter. Give the gift of your presence and receive the gift of other people. Allow yourself to be in the moment with the people who you love. And sometimes the stress of the season is not in our control. It's not a matter of just adjusting our attitudes or our expectations. For example, when Suzanne and I were a younger family with littler kids, it was like our cars could sense somehow that it was December, and one of them would break down without fail every year, delivering transportation challenges and an extra unplanned for expense, just at the perfect time. Right, so we may have economic worries, especially with everything so expensive right now and getting more expensive, right? Inflation is a holiday stressor. If we have a chronic illness, if we have chronic pain, if we have mobility issues or challenges with our mental well-being, we may feel those challenges, especially at this time of year. If we have seasonal depression, those things don't just magically go away because all of the little who's in Whoville are singing on TV. They might get worse this time of year. Relationship woes don't go away. We may feel lonelier this time of year. Difficult family dynamics don't go away. And this may be the season for their annual reappearance. And so we may find ourselves like the poet in our first reading, not just worrying, but making beautiful little homes for our worries, right? Watering their gardens, feeding their little worry babies, cultivating them. And at this time of year, if we're feeling anxious or sad or like we just want to call the whole thing off and go take a nap, the entire apparatus of relentless holiday cheer can serve as a sort of culture-wide like finger wag of disapproval, right? And then subtle or not so subtle messages of that we're feeling bad, we're somehow failing at the holidays, whichever holidays you celebrate. And this is the last thing anyone needs at this time of year, right? To feel bad for feeling bad. So I invite you, if you are having a hard time this year, to offer yourself all the compassion that you can muster. And however we receive the season, joyfully, stressfully, somewhere in between, a little from column A, a little from column B, right? I suggest we all be intentional in carving out some time away from the cultural freneticness, all the holiday rumpa-pum-pum that is ceaselessly beating, and we make some time to connect with the sacred stillness that is also part of the season. The winter season itself invites us into a slower pace. It invites us into a time of rest. Here in the northern climate anyway, the land pauses. It's a season of relative stillness. In the old familiar rhythms, we've gathered the harvests. We've made our preparations for the cold days and the long nights, and now it's time to slow down a little, to conserve our resources, to rest, to heal, to go indoors, to go inward perhaps as well. And in the modern world, we're not so tethered to the seasons and the agricultural cycles, but we all need periods of rest and restoration. And we all need time for quiet, for pondering, for daydreaming, for sacred listening. We need time to listen to the wisdom of our bodies, time to listen to the yearning of our hearts. We need time to sit down honestly with our own spirit, which may be trying to tell us things, and we need the quiet to listen. We need regular time to connect and reconnect with that which we hold sacred, with those values and practices and spiritual forces that ground our life in meaning and purpose and lead us to generosity and compassion, courage and hope. In our poem, Leaving the Island, the poet offers us a different metaphor for that time of restoration, that of visiting and leaving an island. And it's an intriguing metaphor. David White describes journeying to and coming home from a sacred place, in this case, a beloved island retreat. And he talks about the tension of leaving, the desire to abide in both places. He talks about how returning home as we must, we can feel like an exile in our own life. Our journey with the sacred, our spiritual journey, can feel like that too. Like we have these island experiences of peak meaning and peak connection. These island experiences of heightened joy where there's a deeper embrace of life's energies and possibilities. But then we have to return to the mainland of ordinary life. And there is a truth to that. We have to return. Unless we are monastics, we can't spend all of our days pursuing spiritual highs, nor would we want to. Island vacations come to an end. We have lives to live. But if any part of you is feeling like an exile on the mainland of your own life, that is something to pay attention to. And maybe it's time for a journey again to that island, the place where White says we can fall in love with everything and everyone again, and where we get a glimpse of ourselves as someone just a shade braver. So what are the practices that invite you into a slower pace, that invite you into places of rest and stillness and listening? What are practices that take you to that island just for a little bit? Take a moment and think of just one or two or three. Right? These practices could look like prayer, music, poetry, devotionals. It could involve art or singing or dance, cooking, reading, crafting, walks in the woods, journaling, napping, unhurried conversations with a friend or loved one, or something entirely different. Name one or two of those practices, and then make intentional time and space during the month of December. And then if you want a next level challenge, what are one or two things you could let go of during the month of December that would create more time and space for rest and restoration, that would slow the month down for you? Take a moment and think, is there something that you could say no to this year so that you can say yes to time on the island? Something you can say no to so you can say yes to greater peace and stillness. Now, if you're looking for some extra support, I'll mention that the UUI meditation group meets at 10 a.m. every day on Zoom, and all are welcome. And in the month of December, we're going to be offering an extra special Thursday evening meditation for people who want a little extra structured wind down time at the end of their day. Every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. starting next Thursday. Look for the Zoom link in the e-blast or email me for it. There are a variety of other creative and spiritual offerings at UUI that might be of interest if you've never tried them out. There's a tarot group, a pagan study group, a writing for spiritual growth group, a photography group. There are also a variety of social groups that meet regularly if you're looking for more connection and more community over the holiday season. See the e-blast for details on all these things. And just a reminder also, I am here and I'm always happy to chat. So if you're feeling the need for some extra connection, you can always reach out to me as well. One last thing I'll note, on Saturday, December 17th, we're going to be having a special Kids Day afternoon at UUI to offer a little extra support to our UUI families. So parents who have last-minute holiday shopping or other seasonal errands to attend to, or who just need a little time to themselves. You can drop the children off at UUI. We will have a fun afternoon for them, crafts, some movie activities. We will entertain them and love on them while you do what you need to do. Look for details on that in the e-blast. So we'll close today with the words of Nancy Schaefer. I would offer you, sweet soul, this chair by the window, this sunlight on the floor, and the cat asleep in it. I would offer you my silence, my presence, all this love I have. As we enter this holiday season and begin our plans for joy and fun and family and festivities, let us make space too for rest, for stillness, for silence, and for presence. All this love we have, all this love to which we can return. Blessed be, and amen.